Hey guys, so it's me, Nikki, your girl, and we are gonna talk about my favorite person, Graham Platner. Huh? So he was accused of rape, and that's not funny. And there's nothing funny about it at all. And the accusation is credible. Why is it credible? Because immediately after it happened, she told her therapist about it. So there are copious, detailed notes. Um, The other reason is because when she was retelling the story, she remembers that an antique sewing kit got knocked onto the floor and she remembered seeing all the little sewing needles everywhere. That's important because that's a very specific thing to remember. And it's, she probably was starting to dissociate a little bit to protect herself from the carnage that was happening to her and just kind of focused on that. And I'm sure it had some sentimental or financial worth to her or both. But the fact that she was focusing on that and she remembers that detail is, I mean, that's not something you just pluck out of thin air. You don't just pluck that. Just, oh, and by the way, he knocked over an antique sewing kit. How many of us have fucking antique sewing kits? So her accusation is credible, and I believe her. And why wouldn't I? Because everything that has come out about Graham Platner has been no bueno. Hmm? Let's go through the list, shall we, right? He was sexting dozens of women while married, and even though she's a good Gilead wife and she's forgiven him and they've moved on, that still says to me he's a liar and a phony and a player because you were sexting dozens of women and then lying straight to your wife's face every day so convincingly that she didn't even think you were up to anything. I mean, you're a duplicitous scumbag, right? If you can do that. I'm not forgiving my husband if he's sexting dozens of other women. No, I watched Snapped. You know what I'm saying? There will be no forgiveness. But worse than that is he had a Nazi tattoo. I didn't know it was a Nazi tattoo. He knew it was a Nazi tattoo. And that's because he worked for Blackwater, or a sister company to Blackwater. But anything associated with Blackwater should already be a no-go for everybody, because we all know that Blackwater is a Christo-fascist paramilitary. Just a racist, homophobic, what you would expect a Nazi paramilitary to be. They were basically George Bush's um, brown shirts in the Middle East, just murdering people. And that's what Graham Platner was doing. He calls it security. I call it mercenary. And we all know mercenary means murderer, killer. And when did he work for the sister company of Blackwater? In 2018. Where did he work for this mercenary? I mean, well, this mercenary company. He worked for this company in Afghanistan in 2018 for Trump's State Department. Huh, that's interesting, isn't it? That he worked for a Christo-fascist paramilitary while sporting a Nazi tattoo, while working for the state house that was being run by a Nazi regime. Yeah, yeah, that's what he was up to. But he didn't know it was a Nazi tattoo. Get the fuck out of here. He's also said that he's an oyster farmer. He's not. Again, I remind you, his hands are soft and supple and manicured and not malformed in any way. I live in a coastal city, in a coastal state. I know lots of fishermen who shuck things and their hands are broken and busted from injury and arthritis. Because it's cold. The Atlantic Ocean is cold. Even in the summer, it's cold. And he's in Maine, so it's cold. But his hands are so soft, despite working in salt water, shucking things. Get the fuck out of here with that. Maybe he owns an oyster farm and pays people. But he doesn't want to tell you that because then it'll make him look like he has money. And how can he be a man of the people if he has money? Well, he grew up with money too. He went to a Catholic high school. I went to Catholic school, not for high school, just from 5th to 8th grade. My tuition was expensive. I also have a Catholic high school in my area, and there was no way in hell that I was going to that school because it's so expensive. It's like for the elites. Seriously, you gotta like almost take an SAT to get into this school. It's for the elite. It's for the people who have money that go there. It's the only Catholic high school in the area too, so they can charge whatever the hell they want, and they do. And it's ridiculous. So if he went to a Catholic high school, he was raised with some money. He didn't live with hardship. He is not a working man like that, a blue-collar working man, which is what he is pretending to be when he says that he is an oyster farmer. And what kills me is that the people of Maine who actually do farm any kind of shellfish or work with any kind of shellfish, they know what hands should look like that have been shucking and working in the Atlantic Ocean, and his do not look like that. And then he's accused of rape, and it's a credible accusation. And it's no surprise here, because he's a plant. He's a paid plant, like cinema and like Fetterman. Fetterman is doing exactly what he was paid for. Everybody's like, it's because he had a stroke. It's because he had a stroke. Strokes don't make you change who you are at the core of your being. I've known plenty of people in my own family who have had strokes, and they didn't become Nazis. So there's that. Can you become a little angry and depressed after you have a stroke? Can you say hurtful things to your loved ones sometimes? Yes, because it's stressful and you're sick and maybe you don't have full control over your faculties and your facilities, but you don't become a Nazi. You become frustrated, and there's a big difference. So Fetterman has become a Nazi because he was paid to. He was paid to come in, work nice for a couple of years, and then whoop, do a 180, and now he's with them. Okay, Cinema did the same thing. She came in, played nice for a little while, and then whoop, now Mitch McConnell is her good friend. Okay. They did, and he's doing exactly what they were paid to do. Graham Platner is the same thing. We know Trump pays people to come and lie, actors. Like that granny, the Uber driver or the DoorDash driver, whatever, but who was also in other... We know that he hires people to do things. So I don't know why you think it's crazy that he's a plant when he worked for a Christo-fascist paramilitary. Oh, and I also forgot to remind you that from 2009 to 2021, he was all over Reddit spewing hateful, misogynistic, sexist, homophobic, racist bullshit all over Reddit because he was depressed. Can we please stop scapegoating depression and depressed people, because being depressed doesn't change you at the core of your being. It doesn't make you become a Nazi. Are there certain mental illnesses that can certainly affect how you stand in a position morally and ethically? Yes, there are. And depression isn't one of them. So he can take that excuse and shove it up where the sun don't shine, trying to be nice. Um, so yeah, there's also that. Uh, and yes, he also blamed women for their assault, especially if they were drunk. They should be more mature and make better decisions. And also, sometimes when women say it's rape, it was just because they were drunk and regretted sleeping with the person that they chose to sleep with, but then woke up sober and were like, I didn't want to sleep with him, so he obviously raped me. What kind of crazy shit is that to say? I don't know, but he said it. He said it. And again, I'll remind you, he worked for a Christo-fascist paramilitary sporting a Nazi death's head tattoo while working for Trump's State Department in Afghanistan as a mercenary. And then a woman came forward not too long ago and said that he assaulted her physically. He twisted her arm behind her back and locked her in a room and wouldn't leave. And y'all didn't want to believe that because she worked with Susan Collins. Here's the thing, Maine is a big state with a very small population. And since he worked for Trump's State Department in 2018 for a Christo-fascist paramilitary while sporting a Nazi tattoo, he probably also ran in those circles. So it's not weird to me that he probably dated somebody who is a Trump supporter. And since Trumpies are pretty batshit insane themselves, I can't imagine what those toxic relationships are like. So, yeah, I believe that he did twist her arm and lock her in a room. I believe it. And just because she worked for Susan Collins doesn't make her a liar right off the bat. And the fact that people just believe the victims, believe victims, believe victims until they're Republicans or men or somebody you don't like, I don't know. When I say believe victims, I mean it, and I believe the victims. And she said what she said, and then this woman came out and said what she said. And what's funny is the woman who actually accuses him of rape said that she actually is still considering voting for him because she likes his politics. So this is the kind of relationship we have with rapists and pedophiles in the society, that you can literally be assaulted by somebody and still say, but because I like his politics, I would still vote for him. And that also shows you the complex relationship between a victim and her victimizer, especially when the victimizer is somebody you know, liked, maybe cared about a little bit. It's a mind fuck, right? And it messes with you. And she said that she didn't report it because she didn't want to be known as a rape victim. Right, because when you're known as a rape victim, that can be a negative. People can see you as somebody who's like a tattletale, a snitch. I don't know. Whatever they think about victims, whoever they are. Society as a whole, I guess. But if you still say you'll vote for Graham Platner after this very credible allegation, then you can't ever say anything about any maggot who voted for Trump ever again. You can't say anything about anybody in the Epstein files or the people who are hiding the information in the Epstein files is more like it. That's who you're more compared to. If you're still saying, I'll vote, except the victim of Graham Platner, whose mind is affected profoundly from being raped by a guy that she thought was cool and that she could, trust not to rape her, at the very least, right? So you can't ever say anything about any Republican who does any kind of shit like this ever again, or for anybody who votes for those people, you can't ever say anything about them ever again, because you are them and they are you. You're no different than a maggot. If if you think it's okay to vote for somebody who has a credible accusation against them for rape, also has a credible accusation against them for some domestic violence, and then has the rest of the history that he has with unsavory characters, and has probably done a lot of unsavory things, and from his own mouth blamed women for their assaults. This is on top of everything, the rape accusation. It's on top of a pile this tall already. And so you're still like, I'm still going to vote for him. Then you are some kind of maggot in disguise. I don't know. But if you say you're still going to vote for Graham Platner, get the fuck out of here. You have no say in anything anymore. You have no credibility with anything anymore. You are not an ally to women. That's for sure. You don't believe victims. That cannot be your mantra. You, you, you're just as gross as anybody who voted for this orange Hitler, this adjudicated rapist, like you like to remind everybody. Oh, he's in the Epstein files 38,000 times or a million times, whatever the fuck, right? You love to remind people of all that. And then you're going to turn around at the other side of your mouth and say you're going to vote for Graham Platner, because the rape accusation came after a mountain of shit that should have had him disqualified a long time ago. So, I'm sorry. You're still going to vote for him? You're a scumbag.